Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King, and I appreciate you bringing up that question because I too have heard from a lot of folks back home. We have a couple advisory committees that are pretty important. One impacts the NPRA in the 1002 area. There's two groups under the BLM, the NPRA Working Group and the NPRA Subsistence Advisory Panel. So obviously very key to what we're trying to do up north. So hearing your explanation, Mr. Secretary, about what your intent was in just conducting this review and how, if there is work that is underway, there is an opportunity for, again, those groups to be up and running and doing the work that I think we all recognize is important. But oversight is always appreciated around here. Let me go back to another issue relating to land conveyances. The BLM conducted an inventory at Congress's request last year, looking into the contaminated lands that had been conveyed to Alaska Native corporations and additional contamination that had been on lands pending conveyance. They've identified over 600 contaminated sites, and the ownership is kind of a mixed bag here. But what we know is that these sites are contaminated. They need remediation. The federal government is moving very slowly. And part of the problem is we just don't have a single agency that is overseeing and coordinating the cleanup. So you've got a situation where you have lands that are formerly held by the Interior, Army Corps lands, you've got FAA lands, you've got DOD lands, and everybody's kind of pointing the finger saying, you be in charge. And as a consequence, it just is not happening. Now, BLM, we've had long discussions with them. They say that they can't compel federal agencies to clean up these contaminated sites, but it seems to me that because of DOI's trust responsibility to Alaska Natives, it seems that at a minimum, we ought to be able to get Interior to coordinate a working group of these responsible agencies so that we can get the cleanup started on 600 sites. And again, this is a different issue than the legacy well cleanups, which you've already been briefed on up north. You know, we're trying to cut through that backlog as well. But when you think about the situation right now, again, you have Alaska Natives that have not had the commitments under ANCSA fulfilled. You haven't had the commitments to our Alaska Native veterans fulfilled. And then on some of the lands where they did receive conveyance, they get contaminated lands. It's not a good deal. It's not right. So I'd ask if you can have your team go back and see what they can't do to work with us on how we can address this issue of contaminated lands. Maybe we need to look at whether Interior could allow ANCs to trade back contaminated lands for selections of new clean lands. But I need to make some progress on this, and I'm asking for your assistance on it.
Well, the good news, at least on the Alaskan legacy wells, is I think we're down 31 now as opposed to 50. And by the end of 2018, I think we're going to be at 25 wells in the legacy. But I share your frustration, and this is why we're looking at a reorganization based on a joint model of combatant commands, because you are absolutely correct, is that the different bureaus within the government agency, whether it's Ag or Interior or Army Corps of Engineers, don't work very well, and you can't task each other without going to the Secretary, and we've created a bureaucracy that we can't get anything done. So we're looking at quite frankly, in Alaska, is going to more of a joint model, joint management, rather than everyone report to their headquarters, we report to a joint command. Same way we fight forest fires, similar to the way we fight combatant commanders, and then make sure we have a state liaison. We think that model is appropriate when we're looking at wildlife corridors, watersheds, cleanup, and these areas that transcend one isolated bureau but our multi-bureau, it would be joint in this case. So we think that that model is more appropriate, and we're going to need some work with you to make that happen. Most of the authority relies on this secretary, but there's some things as we go through what will be required. We're no doubt we want to work with you anyway on it, but we're going to need your help in order to bring the ball to the field.
Just so much of this is interagency coordination, and it gets very frustrating, again, when you have one agency pointing the finger at the other one and say, you do it first. So we need to work with you on that. Let me turn to Senator Franken.